You're listening to the Business Mike podcast. Amazing interviews with entrepreneurs and industry thought leaders.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Business Mike podcast. And joining me today is Qaalfa. Qaalfa, can you just let the listeners know a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure. The name is Qaalfa Dibeehi. I'm a partner with a firm called Human to Outcome. That's human number two outcome, human to outcome. And what we do is the people side of transformation. So transformation can be customer experience, obviously, but digital transformations, any kind of cultural transformation, work on the people side of transformation. So basically our whole function in life is to transform mindsets, which will enable behavior modification. So we transform mindsets to modify behaviors, and the behavioral change is what you really want when you're going through a transformation. Before this, the core group of us who are at Human to Outcome, we used to run the Leadership Institute at one of the largest companies in the Middle East. It was called Majid Al Futtaim, if you're from the United Arab Emirates. But that company is over in a variety of countries. And if you're in East Africa, you'll know Carrefour, which is part of their operations. But they have cinemas, communities, shopping malls, retail, sort of you name it, across the board. At the Leadership Institute that we used to run, so the core group that is now Human to Outcome, we were responsible for transforming the leaders of that company, about 46,000 people in that company, the leaders of that company, towards customer experience, data sophistication, and of course, pure leadership. Human to Outcome itself, we do three things: corporate education and training. We also do traditional customer experience and employee experience consulting. And we also do executive coaching and mentoring. And there's a fourth bit, which we can call fractional management or interim management for short-term, high-level postings. You know, for example, someone might go out on maternity leave, or there's a post that's required. It's difficult to recruit for. They need a stopgap individual to kind of step in. So we do that sort of thing as well. Just a little bit brief. Before that, I worked at Forrester. I was head of a global CX consulting at Forrester. And before that was a pioneer in customer space with a boutique firm called Beyond Philosophy. My early career is in neuroscience and banking and pharmaceuticals and things like that. But I've been in this space for a very long time, and now based in Dubai, focused on emerging and developing markets, in particular in the area of, as I said, transformation, the people side of transformation.
Wow, that's quite the resume. And I wanted to ask you, just after you mentioned who you are, how you got into the space, which you've explained eloquently. But more exciting for me is the fact that Human to Outcome recently won an award, and you were surprised to receive this. I remember you reached out and you were obviously excited, but also pleasantly surprised. Can you just tell us a little bit about what Human to Outcome was awarded with and what that was all about?
Yes. So as I mentioned, Human to Outcome, we do three things. The first thing that I mentioned is corporate education and training. This is a direct outgrowth of the work that we had been doing at the Leadership Institute, but of course we've expanded on that and become much more innovative even with that. So with our clients, we were awarded the award in the Middle East. It's by Entrepreneur Magazine. We were awarded, and this covers the Middle East, the Educational Services Company of the Year, which means the services that we provide in terms of transforming individuals, leaders of organizations through their transformations is what we were awarded this for. And because of our approach and our focus on this and this sort of region, with the expertise that we have. So the thing I think that we were surprised is, we're relatively young in a technical sense. We've been together for a long time. We've been doing this for companies, as I said, Majid Al Futtaim for a while, but as a company, relatively young. But I think what we were awarded this for is our unique approach. We, our purpose is really to, as we said, transform mindsets to modify behaviors, our core cause as a company is to promote ethical business. And we believe that in one way to get to ethical business is if you actually practice what we all talk about in terms of customer experience and also servant leadership. So if you do right by your customers, you will by de facto be practicing ethical business. And if you do right by your employees, you're also doing ethical business. So the things that we talk about in customer experience is that, and we want to drive ethical business. So we all want to make money. We want to make a lot of money. We want to win in our spaces, but we want to do so ethically. And if you put that together with what we have happening now in the world with sustainability, if you think about what does sustainability mean, it means longevity, being able to be here and to carry on. And business, in order to do that, has to do things ethically. And again, if you have a foundation of customer experience and a foundation of servant leadership, we believe that by definition, you will have an ethical business. And again, just to add on to that, we believe, or not we believe, customer experience is a business discipline. It's not just a psychological discipline or it's a social discipline. It's a business discipline. It's there to help businesses win sustainably with, in the competitive marketplace, and it's there to do so ethically.
Right. Congratulations once again on the award. And I'd like to add on to what you've just said in regards to sustainability, because that's why we're here. I invited you onto the show to talk about sustainability and CX. So to begin with, you mentioned the customer being at the forefront. So what role does the customer play in enabling a business have sustainable customer experience? This is in regards to the feedback that we get from the customers. So how does their feedback or collecting that feedback impact on the positive customer experience in the long term?
Well, I'm going to start in a slightly different place, and I'm going to start with the Jeff Bezos comment that if you're into this space and you believe in CX and all that we do, and I'm sure your audience does, you need to innovate on behalf of your customer. In other words, the customer isn't necessarily asking. They don't know how to ask. That's not their job to always invent things that they actually need and want. We're at a stage now, if you take sustainability as a general practice, that many customers aren't necessarily per se asking for, if you think about things with the environment and other kinds, there's a core group of people who are super gung-ho about it, but there are others who are not. But the point of it is that all businesses have, for the longest time, been looking at sustainable competitive advantage. So if you think about what does sustainable competitive advantage mean, it means longevity. And one of the things that gets you to longevity is having loyal customers. And also, if you're going to be in business, because customer experience is a business discipline, it's not just there for the customers, it's also there for the business. The business has to be in a position of being sustainable. So sustainability as a concept is part and parcel of what we haven't necessarily framed it like this, but this is part and parcel of what CX. And I would argue that for people who are into the CX sphere, one of the issues that, of course, we're having is it's great. Many companies kind of bought into the language, but once you get into the companies, the CX function is relatively weak compared to some of the other functions, right? Finance and operations and other kinds of things. It's relatively weak, new discipline, and sometimes it doesn't have sway. If your business is going tremendously well, CX will have some funds and you can do lots of things. If your business is like every business going through the cycles, the ups and downs, then what you will find is that CX will lose sway when things are tough, and it will gain a little bit of something when things are great. So as a CX practitioner, it kind of behooves you to take on board and understand what's important to the business and what's important to customers, and innovate on behalf of customers and innovate on behalf of the business in order for sustainability, longevity, loyalty to take hold. So that's what I would say. Now, your question was, how does the feedback from customers come into play? What I would say is, I don't believe necessarily, if you take traditional sustainability, I don't think customers are necessarily asking, or most customers are asking for that. There's probably a subsegment who are literally asking for green this and green that, and willing to make those sacrifices. However, we do know that the new generations are thinking more about this. We do know that sources of funding are starting to be tied to this. So as a business concept, if you think about risk mitigation and other kinds of things, COP28 is happening now, and there's all kind of proclamations that are going on, and we'll see how strong those are when businesses take it on board. But from a CX perspective, it's important to say we can help drive this agenda, given that this agenda is becoming at the top three kind of priorities for many businesses around the world, and we need to think in these terms. I think most businesses have already bought into the language of let's do the right thing for the customer. They have the language. We know the practices are not there, but they have that language. And we're getting into the language of sustainability. And we know the practices are not there either. So there's some lessons that CX can offer to the sustainability world about what challenges we need to avoid. And I think that's where all of this comes in. So it's not directly from the feedback of customers. It's more of a thing that CX needs to address in order for sustainability and loyalty of customers and just the continuation of business to happen over the long term.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things, obviously, that helps drive the sustainability is the technology. Of course, the buzzword going around is AI and things like that. So for someone like yourself whose business is called human to outcome, what role does technology have in helping businesses have a sustainable future as far as the CX is concerned? And what are some of the pitfalls that technology might pose?
So this is I think, the age-old question. And I'll say the short answer is this. What we could think about 4 or 5 years ago, we can now do or some of it we can do because technology, and that's going to continue. What we can think about today, next year, we can do more of it. In 2 years, we can do much more of it. And so what's possible is ever expanding. So technology has definitely enabled certain kinds of experiences and certain kinds of things that were almost unimaginable in a practical sense, when I got into this space 20 years ago, 10 years ago, even 5 years ago. So technology is a huge boon for those things. But I take and raise a bit of a warning flag to CX practitioners about technology. We've been through this game before, if you've been in it long enough. So many of you, all of us, will know the term CRM. In the earliest days of CRM was, originally one-to-one marketing, kind of strategic CRM was what it was called. It was an operating principle. It said the basic idea of CRM was that we need to have a dialogue with customers. It's a give and take. It's not a yelling at customers in a traditional marketing sense. We need to have this dialogue. And that's what we need to do. A whole complex business needs to have a dialogue with a single individual customer. How can that happen? And we didn't have the tools to really, we understood the concept. We were trying to put things in a place. We didn't have the tools to actually do it. So we were ahead of the technology. Technology caught up and said, hey, if you want to have this conversation with these customers, you got to have some memory about what they said the last time. You got to know what they like. You got to know what their preferences are. You have to know these kinds of things, and you have to have it accessible so that when you have the conversation, this thing is right back in front of you. And that's where the CRM technology came in. The warning is that, of course, in short order time, what businesses were able to buy, if you put the box on CRM, the finance, the procurement departments would say, so if we spend this money, what are we getting? And you could point to that technology. We're going to get that system, this thing. We implement that system, and it will enable us to do all these things. And so the technology became CRM versus what CRM was actually meant to be. And I would say right now, we're probably in danger in CX world of something similar happening. So we have some great ideas, we have some tools, and AI with all the things that's happening with it, and other things like it, possibly even Web3 and other kinds of things that's going on, Meta that's going on with that. We're at possibly the risk of, we say CX, we have a concept now, practitioners, we want to have this wonderful experience, but increasingly what might happen, and the flag that I'm waving here is that we might start talking about some version of AI that companies can buy. The thing that they can buy becomes what companies call CX. And at some point, we'll have to watch that. So that's the risk. The great thing, of course, is that we need it. We need that technology. It's wonderful for us. We can work on it. And again, I would say from a CX practitioner point of view, you'll find that there are people who take the career road, and the career road will be, I'm into the technology. Everyone's asking AI, so I'm going to talk about AI, and what AI can do, or whatever tech can do. And then there's the believer's road. And the believer's road will say, we need to use the AI, we need to use whatever technology and any other things that are out there. But at the end of the day, it's people who make experiences, even digital experiences. It's people who make those experiences. And if we neglect that in any kind of way, those experiences that come on the back end will be things that will be a bit haywire. And I always say this: businesses as a CX, as a business discipline, if you make money through customers, is basically three things that happen that allows you to make money. Customers spend more with you. They keep coming back. And they don't leave, right? So that's kind of how you make money with customers. And what we want in the holy grail of CX is what I would call sacrificial loyalty. So we all know what loyalty is, and it's not tenure. It's not just having a customer over a long period of time. It's having a customer who will happily, willingly, knowingly sacrifice to do business with you. What does that mean? I know that your prices are slightly higher, and I prefer to do business with you. I know that I could go to the next store, or this other company has the product or the service that I need today, and it's taking you a bit longer to develop it, and I still prefer to stay with you. And it's not because I'm locked in by contract. It's because I like you. I have a connection with you. I'm having this loyalty. That sacrifice is what allows business to make money. It's cost savings, but it's also revenue generating. I think the technology puts us in that direction, but with that warning that it's not the technology itself that is doing it. It's the people who are using the technology who are doing those things. And I think that creates a whole realm of opportunities and changes in the workforce that are going to come as a result.
Right. Actually, what you've just said raises a two-part question on my end. And that's to do with Amazon. You mentioned Amazon, and it fits very well with what you're saying, because when Amazon was started, it wasn't necessarily the technology that put them where they were. It was the belief that they had, putting the customer first and trying to do their very best for the customer. And as the technology evolved over time, that aided them in becoming what they are today. So that's just the first point. The second point is, so many businesses admire Amazon and how successful it is. And its roadmap has been documented very well in the fact that they're customer-centric. And yet still, not many businesses are ready to follow suit and have that sacrificial loyalty, like you're saying. So at what point do we get whereby your average business is so customer-centric to the point that they completely understand the value of the customer and they start building around the customer, as opposed to the other way around as it is right now? Earlier on, you mentioned how other professions within a business get ahead of CX. So I'll give an example. Personally, here in Africa, in Uganda in particular, COVID helped us wake up companies in the sense that they need to put their customers first. It's one of those things that happen that woke them up. So for the other countries and the other businesses operating elsewhere, at what point do we get to that moment where the customer is king and we're building around them? Because examples have been set through Amazon, so many things have been done, and yet still we're not there yet. So I just want to hear your thoughts on what that tipping point might be, and if or when we'll get there.
Yeah. Well, two things. Let me preface this by saying no company is perfect. And secondly, CX is a new field. So we're still figuring it out, all of us, including me, including everyone in this field. This is a new field. Compare it to accounting, been around hundreds of years. Compare it to finance, been around. They have tools, techniques, proven. They have war stories. Our field the business discipline is 20, 25 years old. So we're like in an embryonic stage of where we're going, which is why the danger of technology taking over what we're doing is so pronounced. But having said that, to your question, um, I have something that I call the cubicle Bob problem that CX practitioners, it's the people problem. And that is, if you look at a business, and I'll relate this to Amazon afterwards. If you look at a business and you say, okay, they have the words. Look at their annual report. There's a paragraph that says customers are important for us. It's the most important. Then their top priorities, the customers, whatever. They have all the language there. They may have even invested in a CX function, a team, a CX head of CX, and so forth. But if you look at the plumbing of the organization, so if you think about a customer going through an organization, there's a black box. I'm going through your organization. I'm going through your finance department. I'm going through your procurement. I'm going through your operations. I'm going through your engineering. I'm going through your product development. I'm going through your innovation. I'm going through all those things. And at the last end, there's, front line, and I may be interacting on the back end. I get product or service that I want or I don't want. So there's a black box. I, as a customer, honestly don't care about understanding all the stuff that's happening in that black box. Not my issue. I could care less. Oftentimes, companies, when they look at that black box, the people who are running the company, the leaders, they think of CX still a bit like CS, customer service. Guys, you on the last mile, fix whatever we need to do for that customer. And that's really not possible because the problems are really occurring not here. They're occurring in finance, they're occurring in procurement, they're procuring in L&D, they're occurring in all the other bits of the organization, security, whatever else it is that's in that organization. So the answer is, and this is why we're on the people side of transformation, the answer is, if you, as a test, and sometimes I do this with companies, go to a company, you're at their headquarters, and they say we're all CXy. And I say, okay, great. I'm going to pick a random floor of this building. And on that floor, I'm going to pick a random desk. So I'm at random employee. I just call them cubicle Bob, right? Random employee. I'm going to go up to that employee and I'm going to say, what's your role in CX? Or how does CX impact anything that you do? I'm not asking you, is it important for the business? I'm not asking you, are customers important? I'm asking you, in your job, what does that mean? What does that mean to you? I'm almost guaranteed in most of the companies that have a CX function and possibly are doing some wonderful CX sounding projects somewhere over there, that person doesn't really have an answer for that. And if you multiply that person by all the people who are not directly in the CX function, who are not directly customer facing, all that plumbing, if they have no real clues, what it means is they're making regular, everyday decisions in projects, which of course don't sound anything like CX. They're just the auditing accounts and the normal everyday stuff of business. If they don't have a way of interpreting that CX perspective in their job, if they don't understand, they're making assumptions. They're not thinking the implications, potential implications of this, which allows the business to now make a choice, because the business has to always make a choice. Sometimes the customer wins. Sometimes we got to cut costs. We got to do some other things. But if the customer never wins because we have this very strong argument on the other side, then we already know what's going to happen on the back end. And so what we're aiming for is to get to a place where the business understands that the very simple, small step that we need to do, that's difficult to do, is to talk CX in a way that people who are not working on a CX project, who are not in the CX or customer sounding function, somehow has a perspective that they can bring when they're just building their spreadsheets and doing the normal stuff of their work. And that's the trick, I think, in trying to get people to have a switch in an organization. If you take Amazon, which is related to them, Amazon is not perfect. You hear a lot of people complaining about what happens on the front line, and even with employees in the shops, and they're not thinking about those things. But what Amazon and Bezos says they have done, and I agree with this part, from the leadership, the top-down point of view, if you work at Amazon, if you have those everyday meetings and all the functions that they have, innovation and everything else, from the professionals at Amazon, not the customer facing people, the people at the headquarters, they have to be having that point of view of that customer. Why are we doing this? What does this do for us? And then they can make those choices. So I would say the trick in CX for me is getting CX in a sense out of the CX perspective, out of the CX function, and into the regular business as usual decisions of the day. And I don't hear many CX professionals really talking about what that looks and sounds like on a regular everyday basis. If we get closer to that, that's great. And by the way, if technology helps us get closer to that, that will be a huge benefit. But in order for technology to do that, the people who are designing it have to be thinking that's an important thing to do and to have. And this is more on the employee experience side of things, but if you get into those kinds of things.
Right. Final question on the technology. From your experience, who is building this technology? Often at time you find a solution that comes out of the box, but I'm wondering how much input in those solutions comes from professionals within organizations, or it's just someone looking at it from the outside in that works in it. What's your take on that and your experience, particularly on the technology and the tools that we use today?
Yeah, I'm not a specific tech person, but let me say this. I think that obviously with the advances, as fast as things are happening, yes, the technologists, the data scientists are kind of leading what's possible. Then the uses, and I think this is where AI comes in, the uses of that, there are companies and places that are trying to use that. What I was saying relating this to Africa, and something that I said at CEM Africa, is that it will be great to see as these technologies are coming, that I would hope that companies in Africa are in on the game early and not just taking the box or whatever that's coming out of Europe and out of America. And it's the same thing I say here in UAE. And I think here they're taking that seriously, and they're developing things for the market, for the conditions that are here. I think the same thing is happening in Africa. I think it needs to happen. And by the way, I think a lot of that can come again out of CX. If we think about what this now, the company would have to understand that connection. And right now, as I said before, they're probably seeing CX as you're kind of like the frontline side of the business. You're not into the plumbing. And I think CX needs to be into the plumbing. And that's where I think the direction of how and what and where and how we assess, even, vendors are coming through, offering you this, offering that. CX people need to be in those vendor presentations. They need to be assessing part of procurement, part of whatever the system is at those companies. Project management, CX needs to be there to have that voice as a part of everyday business. And again, even when those projects don't sound like CX, they just sound like business. That's the exact time that CX needs to be there. So to answer your question, I don't have the specific companies that I would, I mean, there's the ones that everyone talks about now, and that's probably going to be driving a lot of this. There's money, venture, the capital is there to experiment and to play. But for Africa, the thing about Africa is, in general, with sometimes less resources, more innovation has come out of Africa on certain places. So if we use the same principle, and I'm sure it's happening there. I'm not up on this side of things, but for sure, CX people should be paying attention. Where is this innovation coming from within Africa? Because oftentimes, when it stands out, it's like, how did that happen in Africa? That's kind of the image that sometimes comes out of the rest of the world, and they start copying it. With less resources, you did something much more innovative than other places in the world. And I'm hoping that we do the same thing when it comes to AI or Meta or anything else that comes out.
Right, Alpha, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. But before I let you go, how can anyone listening and watching this video connect with you, learn more about what you do, and where can they find you on the internet? Sure.
Number one, I'm on LinkedIn, and I think you see the name there. So I'm probably the only Alpha on LinkedIn, so that's going to be easy to find. You can also reach me directly by email, and that's Alpha, same first name there, at human, HUMAN, number 2 outcome, no spaces. Alpha at human number 2 outcome.com. And also you can go to our website, which is just look up human number 2 outcome, human 2 outcome. And there's a contact form that you could reach us there. So either of those 3 ways, and also human to outcome is on LinkedIn. So any of those ways you can reach out to me, and I'd be love to hear from you, your thoughts. If we can help, that'd be great. Even just for chit chat, that'd be great, or just to connect. Love to hear from everyone.